I'm on my way to the barbershop. Did you not know that in the 1900s, black barbers could only service high-class white clientele because of slavery? The black man could not go and get a cut from his own fellow black man because they could not share utensils. They could not share razors. So in those days, the black man couldn't get a haircut. It was the high slaves who cut hair. And so tonight we're going to the barbershop. It was called back then the Sanctuary. It was not until the Emancipation Proclamation were black men able to go to the barbershop. It was Tyler Barber School that was founded in 1934 that trained black barbers, because once the Emancipation Proclamation came forth and was signed, then black men could go. But once it was signed, then they made rules that you had to have license. So it was Tyler Barber School that set up all over the country and licensed 80% of the barbers. That's the history of the black barbershop. And you know what it's called? The Black Man Sanctuary. It's where black men go talk politics. They talk relationship. They train young men. It is a place where young men get their rite of passage and get their first haircuts, and daddy watches on. Nowadays it's mama, because men are not in the home. So today, the Word Network presents Barbershop Talk with Bishop Greg Davis. We're going to talk. This is a series that we're doing at Executive Cuts, my barbershop. Stay tuned, because we got some talk for you in the sanctuary, the Black Man Sanctuary. I'm going in Executive Cuts. We're going to talk. I shared with you on the outside before we came in that this is the Black Man Sanctuary. This is where many of us get our haircut for the first time, which is known as a rite of passage, your first haircut. But many other things, politics, relationships, are discussed in the barbershop. And tonight, behind me is D'Angelo. He is the owner and proprietor. Thank you for allowing us here tonight.
No problem, Bishop.
A lot of talk goes on here, huh?
Oh, all the time.
You feel like the moderator?
No, not sometimes. You know, sometimes you feel like the moderator, but for the most part, we all involved.
Is he the moderator, y'all, when y'all come in?
Mo the moderator. Mo always want to get the stuff started.
Pastor Welton joins us. He pastors New Life here in the city of Detroit. Welcome, sir.
Thanks,
Pastor Michael Cunningham is here. Great church on the east side of Detroit. Thank God for him. East Lake. And all the way from Saginaw, Michigan, Prophet Albertus Johnson is in the main chair. He's here from Saginaw. And we have men that are from all walks of life that you'll get to know. I want to talk about recently in the news, literally in 72 hours, Pastor Cunningham, start with you. And we're just going to talk tonight. We saw 2 blacks get killed at Kroger's by a man who was a racist, well-known racist, white man. We saw literally 14 bombs go to 2 former presidents' homes, and Maxine Waters and others, 14 bombs. And then, if that was not enough, we were awakened to a Jewish synagogue where 11 were killed and 6 were shot, 2 fatally. That's in 72 hours. Do we put the blame on this Trump age that we're in because of the rhetoric? He even went as far as to say that the synagogue probably wouldn't have happened the way it did if there was an armed guard inside of the synagogue when they asked him about gun violence. You're a pastor.
Yeah.
You're an East Side pastor like me.
Yeah.
You're preaching already. Y'all hear him ran up? Yeah. What do you think? I mean, we're going to explore the Trump age, being black men, black pastors, black businessmen. in the marketplace under 45.
An elevated temperature, a sneeze, and a cough are not the sickness. They are symptoms of the sickness. All that you have previously described, Bishop, are symptoms. I have said, as a trained historian, that America will never reach its promise as the greatest experiment in governmental democracy until there is finally a mature enough public to at long last have a serious discussion about race. Race was a part of the issue of the founding of America. The claim was made that we were a Christian nation, that we were a beacon of liberty that opened its arms to the peoples of the world. Give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, come to us, and we will provide you shelter and inclusion and opportunities for a better life. But race and class colors everything in America. And at periods in our history, we thought that we had distanced ourselves from it, but it's just like that toy. You punch it, you knock it down, but it still bounces back up. Because we have never had a serious national discussion about race. And until that happens, whether it is Donald Trump is a symptom. He did not bring the kind of acrimony and animus into America. He just embellished it.
But he helped release the venom that we're
No doubt about it.
because now,
No doubt about it.
I mean, they're comfortable with, they're out of the cloud. They're out.
That's it.
Yeah, they're
That's
comfortable. He called himself a nationalist.
Sure
When
is.
have we heard a president say that?
Yes.
You know, Mr. Weldon?
Well, I agree with everything that Pastor Cunningham said, Bishop. I think, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to word it. We can blame Trump for what we see going on in the world, but I think the greatest tragedy is that we have Christians that are trying to interpret where we are in the world without considering what this world looks like in the Word of God. This is an evil day. And it's a promise that's written that at the end of the day, we can say Trump has released this evil and Trump has done this and done that. And I understand he's the one with the cameras on him. But I think what we fail to realize, not just in our barbershops, but also in our churches, that now we must accept that we are now living in what most would confess to believe this is the last and evil days, which every era shifts, or should I say every culture shifts in its value system. Every time there's a shift in culture, the value system of that culture changes, which means that the consciousness of the people who are products of that culture then change. This is the era where the Bible says many shall be offended. There's a demon of church hurt running around as if we're surprised that offense is happening in church when it's written in the...
If you look at the word, really the only thing that he's promised
about his return that hasn't happened is him. He's the only thing about the rapture that hasn't come to pass. And I think that we can sometimes be so focused on what's happening politically, we're not aware of what's happening spiritually. And as the church, I think many times we make the mistake of not living in this world, but not of this world.
You have, you all, this is what I wrestle with. He's a Republican. We may have Republicans in it. This is what I wrestle with. He moved the embassy to Jerusalem. He's repealing some of the things that Obama wrote into law which are things that the church is not supposed to stand with. So now you have a president who white evangelicals is standing with because they're saying this is the Bible. What do you, when you say vote against him, then are we voting against what we're supposed to believe as a church? See, that's what I wrestle with. Because Israel, you know, biblically, we're spiritual Israel. We're supposed to go for what Israel does, the peace of Jerusalem. So how do we wrestle with that? With you got your face frown, Pastor Ward. How do we wrestle with that? Anybody? Because this barbershop talk. How do we wrestle with that?
I think what you have to do first is don't wrestle with it. If you look back at Genesis, when Jesus was about to be crucified, what did he tell him? Do what you came to do. The problem is we trying to make sense of Trump. Trump not the issue. They haven't been in the closet. They've been out. It's like that pot of water that's boiling, and when you throw the salt in it, what happens?
I don't think they've been out like this.
No.
They've been quietly out.
They just needed somebody with the pom-poms, Bishop, to say, hey, we here. They've been out. If you don't believe that, drive to Livonia. Drive to Redford. See,
For those that are watching nationally across the world,
those are small
those
cities.
small cities in Michigan.
That had the segregation. Drive to Warren, Michigan. See, they've been out. No cloak has been over it. We just didn't want to understand that once Obama came in, it was the poke in the side, like, hey, get up. They woke now, y'all. So now we got somebody that, and truth be told, he's not like you said, he's not the only one. Trump is the appetizer for the party and the people that they want to come after. He's the appetizer. He's the tenderizer on the steak.
He the guy that with the key to open the door.
He the guy with the key to open the door. See, this just the appetizer. Mm-hmm. We ain't even seen the big fish yet.
All right.
But one good thing about having Trump in there is making us have this conversation, and it's waking up Black America and the Black church to realize they never gave us nothing. Everything we had, we gained it through our hard work, and we depended on this party, whether it be Democrat or Republican, to do something for us when we should be our own nation.
Well, I mean,
Our own community, our own businesses. It speaks to also reinvesting within ourselves. And if you see any other culture, they reinvest in themselves. And this is a big wake-up call for us to, hey, listen, let's reinvest in ourselves. Because if we take the time to reinvest in ourselves, we're a billion-dollar nation, multi-billion-dollar nation, just off of products that we consume. Absolutely. If you look at the Jordan shoe, they said
now you touch me hard. You hit me hard.
I mean, no, I'm not saying it in a negative way. I like Jordans like anybody else would. But he is a multi-billionaire just off of shoes. Like, they spend multi-billions of dollars off of shoes. Imagine if we put that billion to our churches, our communities, our stores, and truly invest in each other. We really would be unstoppable. Absolutely. If you look at us in sports, unstoppable. I mean, we've been gifted, but a lot of times we don't take the time to reinvest into that gift.
And I know it's not Sunday school, but we keep on referring to the Bible. But so since we brought the Bible up, the bottom line is God put Trump in office. I don't care what nobody say. God, the same way he did Israel, put evil kings over them to bring them back to their senses. He put Trump in there to bring us to our senses.
No doubt.
And I think it's a level of, I agree with everyone. I think it's a level of, again, for us as a people, to reposition ourselves.
Without question.
So the reinvestment, but also the reconnection. For a long time, I think that we had this notion that, we moved out, and I'm guilty. We moved out into the suburbs. We moved away from each other, if you will. So now this is a major wake-up call where we're repositioning ourselves, not just to get out the vote, but to reconnect. Because our children need it, and we've lost something. Mm-hmm. That's another thing that we really have to put on the table. We've lost some. There is a disconnect.
Like legacy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one of the main things.
So when we were talking earlier about church, and we're talking about millennials, and there is a separation. There is a timeline that we've the generation from passing down certain things that we were given. So it seems like we're the last. If you're near 50 years old, it's almost like you're the last that was passed down to the children that we see now. They don't have the traditions that we've been given. It seems archaic to them, or something that they've never heard of. So the piece with Trump is one thing, but in terms of repositioning for us as a people is another. For sure.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I really believe that Trump is the igniter for some people to feel like they have the right to do anything now. Like, you just can come out and just say anything, because our president, he does and says whatever he feels to whatever extent, whether it hurts your feelings, whether it make you look good, whether it make you look bad. And he is the igniter to other people to make them feel like they can do and say anything, and it causes a reaction. And unfortunately, with him being the leader, you hold, and whether we want to say it or not, he's the leader of the free world. He's the leader of our country. People didn't want to call President Obama, but he was the president. And so in terms, I do call him President Trump, not because he is a great president, but because he holds the office. But with that comes along responsibility. And I think that's where the biggest issue as it relates to the black community, as it relates to Trump, is his responsibility that he's holding. He's not responsible for the nation. He's not responsible for the whole United States. He's seeming to be responsible for a certain sector of people, and it's causing issues as opposed to bringing us, the United States, together, is actually dividing us. But with that being said, our responsibility is to pray for him. That's what the Bible tells us to do, is we have to make sure that we continue to keep him lifted up in prayer.
But
because it's important.
It's good. That's true. I did it Sunday. I prayed for him.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
no.
We do. We have to do that.
You have to. I did it Sunday. I told the people before I did it, I had to repent, and I went on and did it.
Absolutely.
But in that, you talk about the positioning of what we're supposed to do. The prophet also spoke out against what, to the king. Am I right or wrong?
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%.
Are we speaking out?
Oh, you have to.
Are we though?
You have.
Where's the Martin? Where's the Martin? Where's the Martin who stood up against Johnson?
But see, speaking out can't just be pretty speeches and conversations in places like this. I think the best way to speak out is to go vote. But so many people have been brainwashed to believe that their vote doesn't have a voice. It has no power. It leaves no actual print in what happens. But I think the best way that we can see that our votes do work is I think one of the best ways for us to see it was when Obama got elected. Not just for one term, but for 2 terms, in which people of color, people who are minorities, came out in massive record numbers ever than before, because they saw somebody who looked like them, who they felt they could identify with, going for something that they never thought was achievable. And so this conversation is good to start it, but if you're not registered to vote and you're not going to be present when the election time happens, then you're just talking pretty talk. That's all it is.
Right, and I want to speak to Bishop's point earlier about the prophet speaking out. I totally agree with what you're saying. Voting is very important, but the bottom line is this: whoever speaks out got to be a prophet and not a puppet. Because these guys that are going around Trump now are so excited to be in the White House, like they never been nowhere in their life, so they're not saying nothing. We need some real prophets who are going to say something to him, not these puppets that's been going to the White House.
Agreed. While at the same time, those who are prophets, we must stand strong with the prophets and not criticize nor tear down those who are standing. And that's a major problem, because there are those who are standing, but we're not standing with them.
Because we're so easily divided, because somebody will say one simple thing that we don't agree with.
Exactly.
We will throw and sacrifice the bigger picture and the whole message based off of one small disagreement.
Exactly.
I got a question for y'all. So is there anything you think President Trump could do to redeem himself in the eyes of the black community?
Resign.
Is there any? The whole point is free and Kwame Kilpatrick and Tupac Mama, you can come home.
No. Here's the reason I say that. He made a good point about voting. But let's look at it this way. This structure and system is systematically put in place to select the president, not elect. Now, hear me out. Hear me out.
Yeah.
President Trump won by 2 counties in the United States. Macomb County here in Michigan and a small county in Wisconsin.
Right.
He lost the popular vote, but the way the Electoral College is set up, he won by 12 points.
Right.
So this system, let's think to the Bushes. They were selected, not elected.
Right.
Yes.
So understand something. We have to systematically change, and it's enough powerful black people. But what gets me is when I turn on CNN and I see some men of God, some preachers, standing with this man who means not only the black community, but the entire human race no good.
So let me respond to the first part of your message, because many people are only going to remember the first part of what you said, which is the fact that it's a system. But they're not going to hear the second part that you said, was that we've got to impact the system.
Absolutely.
We all know that there's a system in place, no doubt. But are we raising up our children, our black young men and women to go into that system and be senators and legislators and mayors and governors? We're giving out basketballs and hairbrushes. We're making our children Instagram models and all kinds of other things. But I don't hear any of the parents of the children that I educate say, I want my child to be the governor, the president. They say, oh, I want them to go play that basketball and bring home the family some money so we can move up our projects. It's this tunnel vision of a dream that the black community has fallen into, that we seem like we're not digging ourselves out of, but we want to keep complaining about the system. And part of the reason why our people don't vote, especially in a city like this, is because we can't vote in a place we're not registered in. Our car insurance can only be cheap if we register in some suburb that we don't even live in. And then we don't even take that car we have, drive out to that suburb we're registered in, and vote out there. We just don't vote.
Right.
That's all we do. We can't afford the car insurance where we actually live. We can't afford the car insurance where we actually live. So we get that address. We find that address. We know how we do it. We find that address so we can get that cheap insurance.
That goes back to what? A system.
Right. But again, brother, we changed the system, and this is not to tote my owner. But I made sure I preach this to my children every day. We're not from privilege. But my son just graduated from Harvard Law School in May. I said, change the system. Don't lose your identity. Don't lose who you are. Because you can position yourself in a place to change the system. But we must put that in our children to do it. And stop having the discussion and be proactive with doing so.
And also maintaining. I think that's another part that's be accountable. A lot of times people are not accountable, and that's what's missing more than anything. You could start something, but you got to be accountable to somebody. Because a lot of times people say, "Hey, yeah, we start, but who you being accountable to?
Who you reaching back to?
Who you reaching back to? Because it's one thing to start and begin the system, but maintaining the system is a whole different ballgame."
So I have people call my radio show all the time. On a regular basis, and they say, no matter how you vote, no matter whatever, the system already is fixed. I tell them all the time, but you have to sit at the table in order to change the system. And they still say it doesn't matter whether you sit at the table or whatever, the system is fixed. It's already fixed. No matter who's in there, it's fixed. The white man, they blame the white man. White man is the reason for everything. Well, if that's the case, we wouldn't be sitting in this barbershop. You know, now although now it's getting tight for us, it's getting tight for us through here. But how many here would hand shown that you believe the system is against us?
There's a system in place against the black community.
Yeah, I mean that it's holding us back. It holds you back.
I would say it's that direct, but there's a system that's been put in place without us in mind.
Absolutely.
And that system is what is.
But I'm looking at. But see the argument that I have. You have Daniel Baxter here, who's over elections for the city of Detroit. You got brothers here that are in the system and doing well. You one of them. You're doing one of them. You worked for the city of Detroit. Now you know. So how do you explain that? That's what boggles my mind. when you say the system is rigged. Then, but why are you succeeding?
I agree.
That's part of the system. That's part of the system. You got to keep. See what's going on. See, people, we sleep. That's all. We sleep right now. What it is we waking up. That's why we gather together. He waking us up. We starting to see different stuff. We thinking outside the box. We not just in the box no more. See why he succeeded it, because it's all the system. So they expect him to look down on us. You see what I'm saying? It's like the Willie Lynch system. It's still going on. We all conditioned. Everybody, I put him in a place, he comfortable. Now he looking down on me because I ain't in the position he in. It's all the system. See, it's not a system just made up of, I'm going to put you in jail. It's the Constitution, 13th Amendment, all that is involved in everything. It's like everything is systematic. I might, just like these young guys that's rapping, they take them out of the struggle by giving them these big old contracts. Give them a big contract. So now they don't feel the same struggle. It's divide and conquer. That's what it is. It's all divide and conquer. So if they keep us brothers divided, then they win it. But when they see this, believe me, they're going to try to stop this, because this power. They don't want, we got the power. We run this. This is our land. This our last stop. He brought us here because this is our last stop. We've been running from country to country, and he brought us this our last stop here. It's all in that good book he gave.
How can we say that it's a system against us when we had a black president, though?
Well,
Well, y'all don't really
See,
you really don't want to go there.
I just think I hear what you're saying, and we keep talking about the system and how somebody will get in a position and we feel like they look down on us. There are so many things that keep us divided as a black community. It's absolutely ridiculous, and part of that is because we just need to acknowledge the elephant in this room is the fact that black people have a savior complex. We're looking for the next savior. We feel like we got to get that one person in place. Once we get little Ray Ray in that position, Ray Ray now all of a sudden has all this power to reach back and save us all, which is why many people turn their backs on Obama, because they felt like, okay, he became president, and after he got elected and went into the White House, his first day in charge, all black people should have been living large. But that's not how it works. And we're quick to get upset and get mad at somebody the moment we feel like they're not doing what we think they should be doing.
And see, I had no expectations. I celebrated the moment of the black president. After that, I didn't expect him to give me my 40 acres and a mule, because he's the president for everybody. You know, the church got upset because of him signing gay rights, and they supported him. And I didn't get upset at that, because I didn't expect for him not to do that. He's the president. He's not the pastor of everybody.
You know,
So-
when you were talking about the system, you know, the one thing that you always got to keep in mind is that when you're born black in America, the odds are against you. Once you come out of the womb, the odds are against you. You know, you have so many distractions that preclude you from getting and aspiring to whatever God called you to be. The Bible talks about heaven and saying that the road to hell is broad, and many will go that way. But that route to heaven is very narrow, and few find it. And you know, when you come up on the east side, right off of Mack and Bewick, you got the streets, you got drugs, you got gangs, you got peer pressure. You have all of these anomalies that impact you on a day-to-day basis. I was able to overcome and transcend that situation because I had a daddy who was talking to me and sharing with me the importance of education. When Jimmy Carter was elected president in 1976, he took me to the polls to go and cast the ballot. Judges were on the ballot. He showed me how to cast the ballot. He made sure that I got a proper education. I had a church that I went to that taught me scripture and all of the dynamics in terms of God. But many of my friends didn't have that opportunity. And many who did still chose the streets. So we have those anomalies that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Now, it was hard when I was coming up, but it's even more difficult and more complicated for our young brothers and sisters to overcome these odds and obstacles and mazes that are put before them on a day-to-day basis to overcome. And
but they don't. Pastor Cunningham, you got to try. They don't have what you just said. I grew up under Reverend, and I got to mention it, Reverend Ananias Davis. Saturdays you went to the church to clean up, all the young men. They had barbecues. They had car washes. This is where you learn to be a man. Listening to Deacon Mosley. These are real names. Deacon Johnson. All these guys. I cleaned up the church for $6 a week. I didn't know the saints were so dirty. And that if I wanted to go to convention, I got paid. My granddaddy was the pastor. But I was faithful, though. But I was faithful. I was there. I mean, literally, I've been in church since I was 9.5 years old, and I was assistant superintendent. I've been in church 40-something years. I'm 56. But those guys taught me to be the man that I am today. The mothers, they grabbed. Y'all missed out on that. I'm sorry. Y'all missed out on that. We don't do this.
I would say I think when I think about Pastor Cunningham and what he shared about history, I think what we are doing is communicating the black culture as if it's monolithic, right? Like all black people think the same, which we never have, right? So when we say black, it's almost like everybody is assuming that all black people think the same. That's not true. So, and I want to reference a point about history. So when you think about part of what black people think about as a Renaissance era for us was during the 60s, because during this time there was so much legislation that was happening, very specific around what was very important. That's where people were able to live. And what was happening where you could live throughout the country, it forced all black people of all walks of life to live in a very tight-knit community. So if you were a doctor, a lawyer, an entrepreneur, a barber, you were all here, so you were able to learn from all walks of life and education levels. And the greatest example of that is Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street. So when you look at early 1900s and what happened, when you look at the success of black people and what they were doing there, I think this is what you were alluding to earlier, right? That's what you start to see happen. So my contribution to the discussion is, see, it's the church, right? It's the barbershop that becomes sanctuaries for people to really have the discussion. And for me, I'm always a person that's about, like, what's your locus of control? So I also agree with the brother when he says, like, hey, okay, it's not just a Trump issue, right? It's a me issue, right? So what am I going to do with my locus of control? Like, so if you're a pastor, right, that's gonna step on some toes, what are you doing, right? How reflective are you? And how honest are you about your contribution? So if you own Mac and Bewick and you had that experience, Mac and Bewick been a hot mess for 50 years, and it still is today. Hold on, let me finish. So why you there? So why you there? Right. No. Go ahead.
You can come at me on that. You know why? Because I pastor in Southeastern High School a quarter mile from Mac and Bewick. And the young man you're sitting right next to is over my evangelism, and we just took over St. Jean and Mac and fed backpacks, gave out all kinds. So we're doing it and doing turkeys and everything. So I'm back where I'm back where I'm supposed to be, on the east side, where many of these brothers, except Cunningham, won't hang out. Because most have went to the suburbs.
We on Charleston, not a drive.
No.
Okay, Billy.
But let's acknowledge though what some of you have said, some of us have said that we've had that most people don't have these days. You have parent accountability. Yeah. You have community accountability. Yeah. And I can't tell you, I'm an educator. I've never seen some of my parents ever. We educate your children for 180 educational, there are 100 educational days, 180 learning days that we have a school year over the course of 9 months. I've never ever seen some parents, whether I call kindergarten through 8th grade, but I've also taught high school. So now, there are some days I will call, I'll send a letter home. I will never, ever, 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 ever meet your mom or your dad. I'm never going to get a phone call back. I'm never going to shake their hand. And I acknowledge that they're never going to have that parent accountability. So you get responses like, call my mama, call my daddy. I don't know my daddy. I have children say that to me. But everybody didn't grow up like I did in a two-parent household where they drugged me to church because it wasn't an
They
option.
say that to you because they can say anything to them. There was times you wouldn't even, you say, you. No, let me tell you something. No, don't call my mama. Don't call my uncle. Don't call the neighbor. Don't call nobody. Right, but now they be like, right.
My only pushback to that, my only pushback to that is again my original point around that statement can be anchored as if all black people are supporting their kids. Every person in here, I've seen them coming here as dads with their kids, right? So you can call my house, you best believe I'm Johnny on the spot. So I think we gotta qualify the statement and say there's a population of black people who are unresponsive, right?
I'm sorry. I definitely agree with you. I think that it goes back to kind of what we've been saying, that for some reason we always find a way, no matter what the situation is, to make it the church's fault. No matter what it is the church's fault. So we're now in a day where people expect the church to be everything but the church. So people who don't read the Bible now want to define the church. When there was a day in culture shifts, again, value systems. 20 years ago, the church was the center of the community because the community honored the church. But let's be very honest. When your church has service and you've got a higher armed security, you have to protect that church from the same community that's blaming the church for its issues. I had the same crew that went in Bishop Jackson's church, come to my church in a Bible study. But at the same time, I was able to stop and give them an opportunity to speak. Because here it is, you want to come and bang on the church's door. You want to come and blame the church for everything in the community. The church getting the money. But we're not paying attention to the fact that in Wayne County, it is the most populated county of strip clubs in America. Weed houses all over the community. But I bet you ain't beat down a crack door saying give back to the community, because we as the church figure out a way to allow people to blame us for everything going on in the world. We do not address parents that don't go to parent-teacher conference. We do not address parents that do not sit down and do homework. And just as you say, all black people are not the same, all black preachers aren't the same. We want to generalize the black preacher. So here we are. We're going to say in 2018, if you're a black preacher and go sit at the table in the White House, you're an Uncle Tom. Prove you're black, stand on the steps and yell. That's what we say now. If you go as a black preacher to the White House, no matter what you do, we didn't have a conversation with all the people at the table. As a matter of fact, many of us wrote a letter to them and posted it on social media. The letter we wrote to them, we posted on social media. You don't know what the heart of every preacher at that table was, but we generalize that because we love to put ourselves back in the same position that we scream that we want to get out of. It's not the church's fault, or only the church's fault. People have to be held accountable for where we are in country.
And you don't know what's been screamed either.
Mm-hmm.
Right. People screen a lot of stuff on TV.
Right.
On social media, on all type of sites. A lot of things are screened.
Pastor Cunningham?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something. I personally, for me, I view everything through the prism of history, because the Bible says that there is nothing new under the sun. And I study cultures that were once slave cultures like ours. Africans that are part of the global diaspora are inextricably intertwined with Jews. We were both slaves. And one thing I find interesting, I have a lot of Jewish friends. I'm part of a major investment club run by Jews in Philadelphia, New York. I've gone to sabbatical schools. I've been taught by them because they're amazing. The Jews are the only slaves where that their slave masters had to borrow money from them. They are incredible people. You cannot kill them. Hitler tried to kill them. You can't gas them. You can't burn them. You know why? And it is the same principle that I wondered about when I was at BC doing my undergrad, and I studied about the horrors of World War II, and the Japanese were bombed into submission. We were the first nation in the world to ever use atomic and hydrogen bombs. Nagasaki and Hiroshima devastated their culture. The Germans were routed by the Russians, and yet the Japanese and the Germans to this day are economic juggernauts. How did you have your nation decimated and you come back to subjugate all of the nations that destroyed you economically? You kicked the UAW's butt in the 70s and the 80s and almost took out the U.S. automotive industry. How did the Jews come back after World War II? You know why? I'm glad you asked. All other slave cultures that were once subjugated have done one thing. They have made knowledge and the teaching of knowledge, education, primary. In every metropolitan area, every major city in America, there is a JCC, a Jewish Community Center. It's education, it's recreation, it's culture, it's benevolence. And the Jews, Rabbi Bergman at Shaddock Shalom told me, he said, Mike, from the time we are 1.5, we are taught the mitzvah. Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one God, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all the mind of thy. From 1.5, we are taught our history, going all the way back from Abraham crossing the Euphrates. Hebrew means those who crossed over. He crossed over the Euphrates and Tigris rivers into what became known as the Promised Land. They know all of that history. The Japanese kept their history alive. The Germans kept their history alive. All of the successor generations to World War II, they were conversant in their history. Let's be honest, gentlemen. Let's look around this room. How many of us in this room can name 5 countries on the African continent? How many of us know that Africa is not a country, it is a continent, and it is the only self-sufficient continent in the world. It does not have to import one thing in order to survive. How many of us know about the Gilded Age from 1865 to 1877, where that the former slave, immediately after being manumitted to freedom, had 3 goals. I cannot read, I cannot write, but I want my children to be educated, my grandchildren to be educated. I'm going to acquire land, I'm going to build a house, and I'm going to build a business or economic infrastructure. The greatest trick that was played on black people was integration. The Greenwood community is what you referred to in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Black people took a section of Tulsa, Oklahoma, West Tulsa. They were segregated. You can't come into our city. You have to stay over there. And they did. They said, oh, well, okay, we can't come to that city. So what did they do? They went about to build schools and colleges and businesses. They struck oil, and they were the first black people to own mineral rights. Man, they blew up. Their part of Tulsa, Oklahoma, was so beautiful. The black people, look at the foul footage. They wore nice Edwardian suits, and the women silk dresses and custom hats. And so the Greenwood community, insulated by segregation, became an economic powerhouse. And the Greenwood community is the only community in the history of the United States that was bombed by airplanes from above. The U.S. government has never taken credit for providing the bombers. The state of Oklahoma National Guard has never said, we did it. To this day, we do not know who bombed those entrepreneurs in the Greenwood community, but we should doff our hats to them. And gentlemen, I'm submitting to you that we should emulate their example, quit whining about white folk, because my position is, if you are white and you have been socialized in the culture of white-dominated America, you can't help being racist. If all you've seen in powerful positions were white folk, if all the actors, all the people who control the media, all the powerful people who are honored with awards and yeah, you're going to be racist. You're going to look down at people, but forget them. Let's turn inward. Let's go to work. Let's stir up our gifts. Let's collaborate. We're never going to do it. I don't want you to be like me, because if all of you were like me, this would be a very boring world. But in spite of our differences, can't we park them for a minute to the side and come together and find our place in this new emerging Detroit? $7 billion was invested in Detroit in 2018. $25 billion is slated to be invested in Detroit in 2019. What piece of that, black preachers, with our 3-octave hoops and our high-octane choirs and praise teams, what piece of that do we have? We need to come together, come up with a plan for if a man would build a house, let him first sit down and count the cost.
My name is Greg Davis, and you can reach me at Greg Davis Show. That I'm booking Michael Cunningham. I'm his booking agent now. I'm no longer. Thank you, Pastor Cunningham. Amazing, amazing. Prophet, and we're going to segue. Go ahead.
I don't know how this happened. This is crazy, but he said everything I was about to say. I don't know how. I don't know. Right, we flawed.
Well, one of the things I can say that we do good, that's kind of difficult sometimes, is between Bishop Davis was able to call a few guys together that really have, and you guys, you got busy schedules doing what you have to do, but the fact that you were able to take time out to feel that this was important enough. I've had people that don't even do certain network stations and everything, but because they felt the importance of what this conversation could bring, what it can do, what it can start, because there are beautiful things going on in our community. There are people that are opening up businesses. There are thriving churches that are really impacting communities. There are parents that are teaching their children the rights, the wrongs, and the things they need to do to be successful other than just in what the media want to put out as sports or whatever. So there are things that are going on great in our community. The fact that we're able to come together here is a great thing in itself. So there are things that we need to point out about what we do great and what we do well to continue to make sure that we don't perpetuate the mindset that all we want to do in the neighborhood is slang drugs or, see what we can grab or get, steal or hook up, whatever, whatever the stigma is. We are doing things that are great, and this is just one of the things that I believe that is a start of.
And D, I want to just piggyback on that. One of the best examples, Brian, that we are doing well is this barbershop. Look at this ambiance. It's beautiful. Look at the sign. They have standards. They are right next door to one of the most popular restaurants. The gentleman next door that owns this is a major entrepreneur. Look at you, Harvard trained. You didn't have to come back to Detroit, but you came back, so you were doing good stuff. But to criticize ourselves or to analyze ourselves is not to put down ourselves, but Aristotle said, an unexamined life is not worth living. From time to time, we have to put our big boy pants on, look at ourselves very critically, very analytically, in order to encourage excellence, because excellence honors God and God honors excellence. I want to be a black man of standard. I have sons. I'm expecting my first grandson that will carry my name into the future, and I want him to know that his grandfather had a father that wore white shirts with cufflinks and Edwardian suits and spit-shine Johnson and Murphy. And my father was an educated black man out of the 20s and the 30s. I mean, he never had a big church. He never made a lot of money. But my grandmother said Reverend Cunningham would go in the garden to dig potatoes, but he would spit shine his shoes before he went out to dig potatoes. So I took that to mean that A.J. Cunningham, Honorian Judson Cunningham, was a man of standard. Guess what? Everybody who knows Pastor MGC knows I'm a man of high standard. I love beautiful women, beautiful houses, beautiful cars, beautiful clothes. I love education, entrepreneurial excellence. Yes, sir. I don't see anything wrong with that. And iron sharpens iron. One man sharpens another. I just want to help make all of us better with my little contribution. But we're doing mighty things already.
We are in the sanctuary. It's known as the Black Man's Sanctuary since the 30s. It was a barber college called Tyler that trained 80% of slaves, those that were freed. And this is where the black men came and talked. And that's what we're doing tonight here at Executive Cuts on the east side of Detroit. I want to thank the Word Network, Mr. Kevin Adele, and all of those that are making this happen. I want to segue. Bill Cosby. I'm going somewhere with it. What, Pastor Barry, why you look like that? This was the daddy, the father. This is what black men, until him, we had Dick Van Dyke and all these other white men that looked like what family should look like. The Huxtables. That's what we saw. You mentioned that you like pretty cars and pretty women. Thank you for being honest. We saw him as a model father. He was a doctor. I think she was a lawyer. Now, he's a part of the Me Too movement. Me Too. You know, my fear of the whole Me Too movement is I'm a single man. Pastor Welton he ain't married, so until you got a ring on your finger, you're single.
You're right. No, you're right. Amen.
Pastor Cunningham, all married men, raise your hand. Oh, Jesus. Lord,
Y'all got this on camera, right? I want to make sure that it's for the radio.
Listen, listen. You got two single men. You got a few single men out here, but I'm afraid as a single man because I could be dating someone consensual. I know I'm the bishop and the preacher, but I could be dating someone consensual, and they could be mad because I no longer provide the things that go along with dating. Get your hair done. Get a bag every now and then. And I decide that I want to go another way because I have that right to do so. The dead has risen. The most talkative barber in here ain't said nothing tonight. So as a single man, Pastor Welton, or anybody else, I need some help. I'm unlike you. You've never been married. I've been divorced. Okay, I've been divorced. I'm not ashamed to say it. I went through divorce publicly on the Word Network right here, years ago. And so I'm afraid. I'm afraid in this Me Too movement that because you don't really have to really be guilty. I'm not saying I just segue with Bill Cosby. We ain't even gonna go there. Y'all ain't gotta get nervous on that. But really, out of all those women, how many were truthful that really consensual? And how many were not? We don't know. We weren't there. But I'm saying as a single man, I need some help from the married brothers, because, here's what I find. A lot of the married brothers want to get out, and a lot of single brothers want to get in. A lot of married brothers tell me, you better stay where you're at, hold your hand, but I'm afraid. I'm afraid to hold my hand because you decide you don't want to date them no more. That's why I don't make nobody promises. That's why I can say this on TV right now. I don't make nobody promises. And then, I just don't because this is a scary time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you got to inspect what you expect, Bishop. And what I mean by that, and I'm 42. I've been divorced and remarried. Me and the pastor was talking earlier. I didn't even know.
Where are you right now?
I'm married. Okay. I'm married. I am married, in case she watches this.
I didn't see your ring.
No, Bishop, don't start nothing.
We in the barbershop.
Unless we finna start a GoFundMe account for a house. Right. But what I mean by that, and you're exactly right, especially being in your position. You're not the average guy that's building Jeeps on the line or that's laying brick at a new construction project. Your position and your name automatically is going to attract a certain, and it's not just you, it's any preacher. I'm a deacon, and like you said, where's your ring? I make it known whether I'm at work, church, wherever.